David and Goliath. Chapter 17. In those days, the Philistines gathered their military forces for battle, assembling at Soko, a place belonging to Judah. They established their encampment between Soko and Azekah in a location known as Ephes Dammim. Meanwhile, King Saul, along with the Israelite army, also mobilized. They took up their position in the valley of Elah, preparing to face the Philistine threat. The two armies stood arrayed against each other, with the Philistines occupying one mountain slope and the Israelites the opposite, the valley lying between them. From the ranks of the Philistines stepped forward a champion warrior whose name was Goliath, a formidable figure hailing from the city of Gath. He was of imposing stature, standing approximately 9 feet 9 inches tall. He was clad in bronze armor from head to toe. Upon his head rested a bronze helmet, and he wore a heavy coat of scale armor, fashioned from bronze, which alone weighed about 125 pounds. Bronze greaves protected his legs, and a bronze javelin was slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was as thick and sturdy as a weaver's beam, and its iron spearhead weighed a staggering 15 pounds. A shield-bearer walked before him, carrying his massive shield. Goliath advanced, positioned himself between the two armies, and bellowed a challenge to the Israelite forces. "Why do you come out and line up for battle?" he roared. "Am I not a Philistine, and are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man from among yourselves and send him down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, then we will become your servants. But if I overcome him and kill him, then you will become our servants and serve us." He continued to shout, "This very day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." When King Saul and all the men of Israel heard these words from the Philistine, they were utterly dismayed and gripped by intense fear. Morning and evening, for 40 agonizing days, Goliath presented himself and repeated his daunting challenge. Now, David was the youngest son of Jesse, an Ephrathite from Bethlehem in Judah, who had 8 sons. Jesse himself was an old man, well advanced in years during Saul's reign. Jesse's 3 eldest sons, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, had already followed Saul to the battlefield. However, David, being the youngest, regularly traveled back and forth from Saul's court to tend his father's sheep in Bethlehem. One day, Jesse instructed his son David, "Take for your brothers an ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread, and hurry to your brothers in the camp. Also take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. Go and see how your brothers are faring, and bring back some token from them." The next morning David rose early. He left his flock with a trustworthy shepherd, loaded the provisions, and set out, just as his father had commanded. He arrived at the encampment as the Israelite army was marching out to its battle lines, shouting the war cry. David left his supplies with the baggage keeper and ran to the front lines to greet his brothers. While he was speaking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, once again emerged from the Philistine ranks and delivered his customary challenge. David witnessed the spectacle and heard the defiant words. The men of Israel, upon seeing Goliath, again turned and fled in terror. The Israelite soldiers were talking among themselves, saying, "Do you see this man who keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king has promised great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and exempt his father's household from taxes in Israel." David, hearing these words, turned to the men standing near him and asked, "What will be done for the man who strikes down this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel?"
For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should dare to defy the armies of the living God? They repeated to him the details of the king's generous reward for anyone who could overcome Goliath. When Eliab, David's eldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, his anger flared. He sharply questioned David, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your insolence and the wickedness of your heart. You came down only to watch the battle." David calmly responded, "What have I done now? Was it not just a question?" And with that, he turned away from his brother and asked the same questions to other men, who gave him the same account of the king's promised rewards. Chapter 17. And the men of Israel said, "Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel." And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, "What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?" And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab his eldest brother heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride, and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him.
And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said moreover, The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose, and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hastened and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag, and took thence a stone, and slang it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David.
Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose, and shouted, and pursued the Philistines, until thou come to the valley, and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way to Sheraim, even unto Gath, and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine, and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. And when Saul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. And the king said, Inquire thou whose son the stripling is. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand.